Production Masters podcast, the philosophies and techniques behind making music according to the masters of music production.
Well, we need to turn around and look at the front in a moment. But I was going to say, I'm not a Luddite. I'm not married to analog at all. I would say in the last month that about 10%, approximately 10%, maybe less, of my mastering didn't have any analog processing in it. Was all digital.
I find that more interesting, the fact that I know you wouldn't stick to analog for the sake of analog, but the fact that you do have those processors and you find that they're superior in some sort of a way means that they really must be superior.
When they sound better, they're superior, I guess. when I just finished a lovely. Well, I haven't heard back from them for approval yet because they're on tour. A lovely Americana album. And it was simultaneously mixed to Pro Tools and to half-inch analog.
Mm-hmm.
And we spent tons of money to make the decision. After investing all that time in the analog tape, I judged that their particular mix and the style that they were mixing didn't benefit from the analog tape, and the analog tape actually took it too far. They already had a very nice warm sound. Now they were mixing with analog console as well.
Yeah.
And you can have too much analog, you can have too much digital, you can have not enough of either, you can whatever works in the process. But let's turn the camera around because I think it's fun to see this next little thing. Hold on.
Sure. Oh my God, look at that.
That's taller than me.
That is very impressive. That's So you've changed your monitors a few times in the last few years, haven't you?
Well, okay. I could count the number of monitors that I've owned probably on the fingers of one or two hands from 1971 through now. I could give you the whole progression.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just counting in my head. Hold on. Just 5 in about 30, 40 years.
So it seemed to me...
So this is my fifth monitor system.
Yeah.
Sixth. My sixth. I forgot to count the Lipinskis.
Yeah. So if it's not gonna be a incriminating question, it seems like you moved on from the Revels fairly quickly.
The Revels I've had for about 5 or 6 years. Isn't that a pretty long time?
I don't know. Was that your shortest lived pair though?
7 monitors. I forgot to count one more pair. These I think are my final, but that's the way I felt about.
So these are
the
ultimate
as well.
These are the ultimate though, right?
It's pretty hard to beat these. Okay, they're 8 feet tall. That's about 2, 3, 6, about 2.5 meters, something like that.
So are the top ones angled down for the...
No. This is just a crazy wide angle webcam. Let's tilt it so you can see the distortion in the video.
I was just wondering if the... So in terms of where the high frequencies are level with your ears, that's kind of what I was thinking with that question.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time getting these things right as far as the level goes.
Yeah, we saw you cutting
when
out your bits of carpet and that sort of thing. Cutting out carpet
yeah,
squares.
that was fun. All right. When I heard these in Los Angeles and fell in love with them, these are the Dynaudio M5P. The
Right.
Gosh, there's a name for the monitor series. That there's a consumer version that has Danish walnut and costs a lot more, and there's the pro version, which this is with I think an MDF cabinet. But the middle cabinet, the black one in the middle, is an aluminum cabinet with tapered sides to reduce the diffraction. So when I
Right,
heard these
sure.
in Los Angeles, I was sitting on one of these metal portable chairs that they put out when you have small gatherings, just folding chairs,
Mm-hmm.
and the height of the tweeter was absolutely perfect relative to my ears. And
Yep.
when I got these set up, now they each weigh 300 pounds, which is something like about 125 kilos. And the
Sorry.
base,
Each one of those
each
three components weighs that much, does it?
no, the whole thing from top
Oh,
to
I
bottom.
was going to say.
Okay.
They'll like punch holes through your floor, yeah.
The base weighs 60 pounds.
Yeah.
It's a granite base. Okay. So when I got these, I sat in my chair, which was the height that I need, that feels right.
Yep.
Anyway, the way most wheeled chairs are, my ears were above the height of the tweeters. And so I said, what am I going to do? And I put them up on, let's turn the camera around so you can see me instead of the speaker. Down below on the floor, can you hear me still?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, on the floor is the left subwoofer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, turn around. There, isn't that fun? That's not too bad. We can live with that. So, what was I going to do? My friend Mike Chafee said, well, why don't you just tilt them back a little bit? I said, no, I want to get the planar wave from these speakers direct at my ears without any changes, because there's a pair of woofers on the top and a pair of woofers on the bottom, and they're designed to work in concert with each other.
Yeah.
So I could cut a hole in the slab here and drop the height of my chair. I brought in a non-wheeled chair for a while and sat a little low. And then I went to Home Depot and cut up 8. Here in the US, we call them 4x4s. They're really 3 inches by 3 inches by whatever length you want.
Like blocks of wood.
Yeah. So I put the wood blocks under the speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I used while Norman Varney of AV Room Service was making some custom isolators for me. And I went through a whole discussion. I was kind of on the side of isolating components by making them more solid and putting them on tiptoes, triangular pieces that have points on points on the floor.
Yep.
And Norman and several other high-end scientists made it quite clear to me that that is a faulty philosophy.
Really?
Yeah, because there's going to be some resonant frequency that they produce, and they're not going to stay stable no matter what. The idea is to put the loudspeakers on isolators whose resonant frequency is calculated and calibrated, and above that frequency the speaker is totally stable, and below it it might couple. The idea is to use as low a resonant frequency as possible. These isolators, which I had custom made, have a resonant frequency of 8 hertz. Okay, so everything above 8 hertz is isolated. If I were to, let's actually show you. I'm actually going to take the headphones off. I'm just going to give you a visual.
Yep. Far out.
So the speakers can rock.
I can't wait to hear the explanation for this.
That's the symptom that you get when you have 8 hertz isolation. Okay, if there was an earthquake in this room, the speakers would not. Well, I don't know what would happen if there was an earthquake. But anyway, sound travels faster through the concrete floor than it does in air.
Yep.
So if the speakers are coupled directly to the floor, then you're going to get 2 sounds coming to your ears, one through the floor and one from the speakers. But the amazing thing is that when I switched over from the wood blocks to the custom isolators finally, the sound got audibly better in the most amazing way.
It
was tight,
amazing.
Tighter, cleaner, purer. And when I stand behind the speaker while it's playing music against the wall behind the speakers, or in front of the wall that is in front of you, okay?
Yeah.
In the corner there. Before I got the isolators, I could feel a resonance there, even though there's acoustical absorption on that wall. When I put the isolators in, I felt nothing. It was like it's dead there. My God, there's no sound here. So that I was convinced of that. And in addition, I took waterfall measurements of the room and the speakers before I changed the isolators and after.
Yeah.
And you could see the resonances in the response and literally measure a difference.
Yeah.
And there you go. So I'm totally convinced. And there have been enough articles in professional magazines and Sound on Sound and Resolution that do point out. In fact, there was a recent one in Sound on Sound by excellent acoustician pointing out the need for using proper isolation.
So
for loudspeakers.
And what's the sort of material is it made of?
Well, this is a very special isolator. You'd have to talk to Norman.
Yeah, okay.
It's made out of fiberglass sheets, and it's all sealed around the outside. So think of it as a leaf spring. There's multiple springs of air, maybe 10 or 12 or 15 layers, like a layer cake, only very thin, that compress. And it's calculated based on the weight and of the speaker and the distribution and so on.
Wow. Wow, that's fascinating.
You have to hear it to believe it. But I'm not going to switch back to the wood blocks to demonstrate. If you come over here to listen, you'll just have to take my word for it.
Yeah, you need you need like 4 people to lift the speakers up to change it, I suppose.
This is interesting. Once they were on the wood blocks, I was with a helper, of course. I wouldn't dare risk it alone. We're able to tilt the speaker slightly, pull the wood block out, and slide the isolator underneath. So I didn't have to lay the speakers down again to put the isolators under them. That was very fortunate.
But even still, wouldn't be dead easy to do an A/B comparison, though.
No, and that's where people say, "Well, you're just fooling yourself." Well, you can.
Well,
take
the waterfall measurement would dispel that, right?
It did, although I got into an argument with Ethan Weiner, who says, well, he's tested all kinds of isolators and so on, and they have no effect. And when I move the microphone 1 inch, and when I move the speaker 1 inch, it changes completely. So, your measurements aren't valid. But, in the laws of physics prevail here, and below 100 hertz, below 150 hertz, where the wavelengths are, the length of your room.
Yeah.
If the speaker moved a millimeter, but I also use very careful. I have a surveyor's transit that I use to locate the speakers, and a laser measurement tool, as well as, of course, measuring acoustically with the test microphone in a single place, and I'm able to relocate the microphone within one sample at 48 kilohertz of the exact location each time I put the microphone. Okay, and so these measurements were very repeatable, and you can see the signatures above 150 hertz and see how closely aligned they are, and then you can see the differences below about 150 in the two measurements. So, I convinced everyone, and I unfriended Ethan until he said, Bob, we've been friends for years. Why did you unfriend me? Don't do that to me. So I refriended him on Facebook, and I think ultimately he had to swallow his words, but he's a proud individual, and he probably won't say it publicly, but his measurements of, small console mounted loudspeakers on isolators don't have any relevance to the world of 300-pound loudspeakers sitting on a concrete floor. It's a different story.